again, everybody, and welcome to Gamecock Central Radio. Emerson Phillips joined by staff writer Colin Taylor. The NCAA Baseball Tournament Selection Show taking place on this Memorial Day. Colin, the Gamecocks find out where they are headed. As a 2-seed, South Carolina will go to Greenville, North Carolina, and take part in the regional that will be hosted by East Carolina. So the Gamecocks get Ohio State in the first game of the regional. It'll be a 2 o'clock first pitch on Friday. The game will be on ESPN2, and it's East Carolina and UNC Wilmington, the other matchup in this regional. ECU, the 1 seed, UNCW, the 4. South Carolina, 2 seed against number 3, Ohio State, to start things off.
Yeah, and I think that South Carolina, they knew they were in coming into today, and now they figured out, obviously, where the regional is. And I kind of like this draw for South Carolina just in terms of teams, and it's not too far from Columbia, about a 4-hour trip up 95 for the most part. So it's not terrible, and I think that if things go their way in terms of pitching, that they'd be able to, I guess, win a few games and maybe come out of it. But who knows? At this time of year, you never really know what to expect from a team, and some teams can catch fire, and some teams can go on a run. And I think South Carolina certainly believes that they're a team that's able to do that.
Colin, you were at the watch party with the Gamecock baseball team today. What did Mark Kingston say about being placed in the Greenville, North Carolina regional? What did he say about Carolina's first opponent, Ohio State? And what did he say about possible pitching rotation for the Gamecocks?
Yeah, obviously he first started off by saying that he's really proud of this team. At 2017, they came back and had their best finish in the conference, and I think over 5 years, and played their way into a regional and got a 2 seed, a pretty high 2 seed. So he's really proud about that. He talked a lot about the fact that this week's been good about getting guys rested. He's actually played, East Carolina's in the American Athletic Conference, which plays South Florida. So he has some experience going up there and playing. Says that, it's going to be a raucous atmosphere. They play, they've played there, and it's loud, and their fans are active. And he kind of assumed that it was going to be close, either, a Raleigh regional for NC State, Conway for Coastal, or Chapel Hill for North Carolina, or obviously Greenville. But he just didn't know what to expect after that. But as far as pitching, he said that there's some things on the table that he's working through right now, but he's not really ready to name anyone yet as the game 1 starter. But my guess would probably be something along the lines of Cody Morris or Adam Hill, just the 2 guys that have the most experience in the starting rotation. But you could, weirder things have happened, but Eddie Demarius has started games for South Carolina. Logan Chapman's been the Friday night guy for the back half of the season. So you never really know what to expect, but I would go out on a limb and say that Adam Hill or Cody Morris will be starting game 1 just based on experience and just overall stuff. Because that game 1, especially when you're 2 or 3, becomes really, really critical in your postseason fate.
Gamecock Central Radio, Emerson Phillips with Colin Taylor. Gamecocks learned their matchup for the NCAA Baseball Tournament. The field announced today, the NCAA Tournament Selection Show taking place today here on Memorial Day. The Gamecocks get Ohio State Friday at 2 on ESPN2. And then Friday at 7, it'll be East Carolina against UNC Wilmington, the second game of that Greenville, North Carolina regional. So, Colin, Ohio State comes in 36-22. They went 2-2 in the Big Ten tournament. They were beaten 8-1 by Minnesota. Minnesota hosting a regional this year in the NCAA tournament. And Ohio State is led by first-team All-Big Ten selection Noah McGowan, who leads the Buckeyes with a .359 batting average. He's got 9 home runs and 55 RBIs. So it feels like the Gamecocks get a pretty good draw here. Ohio State struggled in 2017. They missed the tournament, just like the Gamecocks did. So the Gamecocks get a Big Ten opponent to start things off.
Yeah, and, their RPI is number 37th, which is just a couple spots ahead of South Carolina at 43. They have 9 Group 1 wins, and South Carolina has 16 Group 1 wins. So they've played, a little bit tougher of a schedule in conference. Ohio State has better out-of-conference schedule. Just based on the RPI, but when you look at Ohio State's record, or teams that they've beaten or played close out of conference, lost by a combined 4 runs in 2 games against Coastal. They beat UNC Wilmington, who's in this regional, twice, 8-3 and then 8-1. And then when you get into conference play, they took 2 or 3 against Nebraska, Iowa had a good year. They took one of the three there, swept Penn State, beat Indiana 2 out of 3, and took a game against Minnesota, which is a regional host. So they've played pretty well, and they took 2 out of 3 against Purdue, which was in the Big Ten title game this year. So they've had some pretty solid wins. They beat Michigan, who's a pretty solid team right now as well. So they've had some good wins. It's just a matter of if South Carolina can come out and play well and kind of overpower them with some of the talent they have, because that's really what's worked for them out of conference, is when they can kind of overpower teams with the style of arms and the style of bats that they have.
Ohio State 14-10 in Big Ten play this year, 36-22, the overall record for the Buckeyes. They're the number 3 seed in Greenville, North Carolina. Gamecocks get the 2 seed. South Carolina is 33-24. The Gamecocks making their 32nd NCAA tournament appearance. And in the 1-4 game in this regional, East Carolina, obviously the number 1, they're 43-16 overall. And UNC Wilmington at 37-21. Both teams won conference tournament championships. ECU making its 29th regional appearance, and I believe that's the most of all teams that have not made it to Omaha. So East Carolina's got a tremendous tradition, but they've never made it to Omaha. We know how hard it is to get to the College World Series. So East Carolina opening things up at home Friday night, 7 o'clock against UNCW. And UNC Wilmington, Colin, considered by many to be maybe the best number 4 seed in the entire tournament. They beat North Carolina twice this year, and they also have a win over Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, and a lot of South Carolina fans will remember, too, that, UNC Wilmington came to Columbia 2 years ago for that regional, and South Carolina had to beat them twice in the championship game to advance. So they had a really good offense then. They are right now they're 65th in the RPI, but that's just because they play in the Colonial Athletic. But they can put some runs up on the board, and if they get the pitching to back it up, that kind of makes them tough to beat at times. And they've always had a good offense. So I think that if South Carolina winds up playing them at some point over the course of the tournament, their pitching better be on, because this is a team that has a potent offense and can really make things hard for a team. And I don't think you want to get into a shootout with a team like UNCW, because they are a really tough team to put away if they're scoring runs like they're used to scoring runs.
Colin, let's talk about some of the other matchups in the NCAA tournament. The top 8 national seeds are Florida, number 1. They're the defending national champs. Stanford, 2. Oregon State, 3. Ole Miss just won the SEC tournament. They're the 4 national seed. Arkansas is 5. UNC, 6. FSU, 7. And Georgia, 8. And Clemson ends up hosting a regional, but they did not get a top 8 national seed. They're the 10th national seed. The tournament committee selected, they announced the top 16 teams, and 1 through 8 will host super regionals, provided they advance through the regional round. And then 9 through 16 host regionals, but will have to go on the road. If all the series in the regionals go chalk, the 9 through 16 teams obviously go on the road for the super regionals. So Clemson ends up with the number 10 seed. They've got Morehead State Friday at 6, Morehead State out of Kentucky. Clemson 45-14 overall, second in the country with 94 home runs. And I thought it was interesting, Colin, St. John's and Vanderbilt, the other 2 teams in this Clemson regional. Vanderbilt obviously very dangerous, great pitching staff, a young ball club, but a team with championship pedigree, having won the national title back in 2014. So Vanderbilt could be a tough matchup there for Clemson in that Clemson regional. Tigers open play Friday at 6 p.m.
Yeah, and Vanderbilt, if I'm not mistaken, was in Clemson's regional last year and ended up winning the whole thing. So they have experience playing each other, and those 2 teams are always, it seems like, know kind of how to play their best at this time of year. Clemson obviously hasn't made a super the last 2 regionals they've hosted, but they know how to play well, and Vanderbilt kind of caught fire a little bit at the end of the year and are playing decently well. So, I always think that that's a fun regional. Vanderbilt always seems to be able to turn it on at the right time, kind of like an LSU type, being able to do that. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. But I'm excited to get into the weeds on all of it and watch as much college baseball over the next few weekends as possible.
Colin, Coastal Carolina hosting a regional as well. They get LIU Brooklyn in the first game, and it's UConn and Washington, the 2 and 3 seeds in Conway, South Carolina. So Clemson and Coastal both hosting regionals.
Yeah, and it's a little interesting that, there was talk before this South Carolina could end up at that Conway regional. But they decided to send 2 teams from pretty much across the country to come play in it. So it's interesting. I think that sets up really well for Coastal to come in and win that one and advance to a super against, I would believe it'd be, since they're the 5th team, they go up against Stanford. So it'll be interesting to see how that one works. I like where this was for Coastal, because they got teams that are coming across from, Seattle to come in and play. So it'll be interesting to see, but I think that you'll be seeing the Coastal Carolina and the Supers come next weekend.
Yeah, Coastal, a 15 overall seed, and if they win their regional, they would head to Stanford, provided Stanford wins. Stanford, the number 2 national seed. And again, it is Clemson, the 10 seed. The winner of the Clemson regional gets the winner of the Tallahassee regional, Florida State, the number 7 national seed. And Colin, we have not yet mentioned, looking ahead a little bit here, that the winner of the Greenville, North Carolina regional, that's the regional the Gamecocks are in, will get the winner of the Fayetteville, Arkansas regional. So if it holds, the winner of the Greenville regional will head to Fayetteville, Arkansas to take on the Razorbacks. And we've talked about Arkansas a good bit this year here on Gamecock Central Radio. Arkansas only lost 1 conference game all season at home, and it was to the Gamecocks back in early April.
Yeah, and they were as stout as they could be at home. Their only loss at home came against South Carolina, like you said, on that Thursday night game 1. And, they're a team that's playing really well right now, and they got 2 really, really good pitchers that South Carolina's seen a lot of this year, because they play obviously in the NCAA Tournament. But, they're a team that if things hold and they end up advancing and South Carolina somehow advances and works their way into that these are 2 teams that know each other really, really well. So, but other than that, you're looking at maybe a Southern Miss or Dallas Baptist, 2 teams that have played really well at this time of the year over the last couple of years in that regional as well. So, nothing's given for Arkansas. I think they have a really good shot, obviously, at winning it with their pitching depth, but crazier stuff's happened, and I think Southern Miss and Dallas Baptist probably have a good shot at maybe knocking off the Razorbacks, just because they are 2 teams that know how to catch fire late in the season.
Arkansas and Oral Roberts, Dallas Baptist, and Southern Miss, the 4 teams in that Fayetteville, Arkansas regional. The winner of that regional gets the winner of the Greenville, North Carolina regional in the Supers. Colin, any indication from Mark Kingston when he will announce the Gamecock starting pitcher for Friday's game against Ohio State?
I'm not sure. We'll get him tomorrow as well in a press conference setting, so we'll see. But if not, then my guess will probably be Thursday afternoon when they have their official press conference up in Greenville. So, but like I said, my guess will probably be Cody Morris or Adam Hill, just in terms of everything that's going on. You want guys that have been kind of in big games like that before and have a couple starts under their belt. I'm not saying Logan Chapman would be bad, but this is his first regional experience. At least Adam's been in one, and Cody's been on the bench, kind of watching one. So he's on the team, was just injured that year. They went to the Super. So guys with experience, I know kind of maybe how to handle the emotion a little bit more than maybe a true freshman would in that instance.
A 2 p.m. matinee for the Gamecocks in the Greenville, North Carolina regional coming up on Friday. South Carolina against Ohio State. 2 p.m. start. It'll be on ESPN2. And 7 o'clock Friday night, the second game in that regional, East Carolina, UNC Wilmington. Kip Balknight and I will come back here on GCR for a full regional preview later in the week. And my partner today, Colin Taylor, he's our staff writer with Gamecock Central. Colin's got a piece up right now on GamecockCentral.com talking with Mark Kingston about the Gamecocks watch party that took place today here on this Memorial Day. And Mark Kingston's reaction to the pairings are up right now. Colin's story is up now on Gamecock Central. Colin, thanks for the time today.
Thank you for having me.
That's Colin Taylor, and I'm Emerson Phillips, and this is Gamecock Central Radio. Thanks for joining us.